So, what do we have to talk about this week? Well, I want to talk about Halo Infinite. I want to talk about its release date, like how that stuff happens, like when it gets pushed into something like December. Is that? We'll get into it. We'll start here in a second. But first, we'll just say thank you everybody for joining. I really appreciate it. If you end up watching this later in some form on, if you listen to the podcast or if you are watching on YouTube, we do this live. We do it live on Thursdays. You can come hang out with us. If you are a Giant Bomb Premium member, you can ask questions, get involved, interact. We've got a great audience here that always asks a ton of great questions and some BS I've seen so far in here. So we'll get to that too. All right, let's talk about this Halo thing. So Halo Infinite is coming December 8th. At least that's what I wrote down. I'm pretty sure that's right. And that's after the Black Friday holiday here in the United States, which was traditionally the time where you would think a video game's got to be out by then, because that's just how it's always worked. And I think the traditional thinking there was that video games are not just the kind of thing that people go out and buy. Sometimes it is a gift, or sometimes it's something you buy when you're out shopping for gifts for other people, or you need to convince your mom and your mom's going to be shopping on Black Friday or something like that. I mean, I think that's what it was, 10, 15 years ago. And obviously a lot of that's changed. The audience has changed, but we'll talk about like how much that has changed here in a second. I will just say, as far as like Halo Infinite and its development and the time it needs as much time as it can get. I mean, we could sort of gauge that and get those vibes just by looking at how they're talking about things, how they're presenting things, and the fact that they are delaying features like the campaign co-op and Forge mode. But like the campaign co-op's coming 3 months from now, or 3 months from the launch, I'm sorry, and then the Forge is coming 6 months from launch. And for me, not the biggest deal in the world, but I get why people who are like, I've always played this campaign co-op, or Forge mode is how I engage with this stuff. I get it. I don't blame you. And obviously this is the result of this game needs as much time as possible just to get the features it is going to ship with out the door. That's why we're getting a December 8th release date. Or at least that's why they're, willing to embrace this December time frame. And so, yeah, games have started to launch in December more frequently. I think the pessimistic example is Cyberpunk, and I get that. I would point just as well to the optimistic example, which is something like Smash Brothers. Although both those games have sold pretty well. Cyberpunk's definitely fallen off a cliff, but both have sold pretty well, relatively speaking. And the idea there is just people who go out and buy games now are buying games for themselves. They know when stuff's coming out. They don't care if it's December or January or Black Friday or whatever. The audience has grown up, has disposable income, and is spending on games when those games arrive. It won't make much of a difference. This is why, it's not why, but, also in addition to, pre-orders are less important than they've ever been. That was the key metric for a very long time. Games tend to have a longer tail now. That is something you see with something like Super Smash Brothers, that Ultimate, that just keeps selling and selling, and so you could take advantage of especially for something like Halo, which is going to have that free-to-play multiplayer component, and then it's also going to be in Game Pass. You can use this as part of the ongoing conversation of why you should either get into that free-to-play game or get Game Pass for a very long time. It'll always be there on the service, and it will always have that potential to convince someone to engage with the service or whatever it is. But Game Pass specifically does invert the thinking of how you actually start selling a game, or how you ship a game. I mean, if you want to even consider it selling. So yeah, we had that situation where it was Black Friday, and a parent is going out and shopping, and they remember, we got to pick up that game, and that game happens to be here. The way things work with something like Game Pass, or even especially with a free-to-play game like the Halo multiplayer, is people get hardware on Christmas Day or a gift-giving holiday around that time, and then they set up the system, they get on the TV, and they start downloading stuff. And a lot of times they're downloading anything that's free-to-play for sure. They might sign up for a service like Game Pass, but they'll definitely do the free trial. And so they are downloading a lot of stuff on that day. And this is something we've seen with mobile games, where the biggest day for mobile game downloads by far is December 25th. It is Christmas Day, where people get new iPhones, they get new Androids, they get tablets, they open them up, and then they sit on the couch and they watch movies, and then they sit on the couch with their device, and they just set it up, and they just go through the store and add a bunch of stuff. Anything that's free, they're pretty much adding. Occasionally, they're also purchasing games, but the point is they are very, very active in using the device that day. And so, as long as this game's out by Christmas, that's really the key date now. Especially because free-to-play multiplayer, but also because of Game Pass and free trials and all that other stuff. So when people are opening up their Xboxes on Christmas Day, Halo's going to be there. That's what's important. Let's see. I'm going to try and think if there's anything else about this that I wanted to touch on. Basically, I got a bunch of my notes here that I wrote down about this stuff. But yeah, I fully expect Halo to follow that similar trajectory to how mobile games have worked recently in terms of Christmas Day engagement. It's this December 8th release date, not going to hurt it. I don't think anyone is expecting it's going to hurt. I think what's mostly happening here is people are reading into it and saying, oh, this game does need as much time in development as possible. And we haven't seen much from the campaign. And we've only seen the multiplayer, and that's fine. But we also know features are getting delayed. So I'm worried because I'm not sure the game's going to be good. And that's totally fair. At this point, the scenario I just laid out is an all things being equal sort of scenario, where if the game is good or solid or acceptable, this is how it plays out. If it comes out and it's a trash fire, you can throw all that stuff out the window. It doesn't matter. And the conversation will be around how they should have delayed it again, But we could just play it and find out for ourselves whether or not that's the case. And that's kind of how I feel about it right now. And when we're talking about possible scenarios, I think it's more fair to just say, this is the thinking, this is how it could work, this is how it should work in an ideal scenario. But, again, if it's bad, it's bad. So again, this is from Anonymous. I'm curious to know if you have heard from any developers about what it's like to work with Tencent. Or in other words, have you heard about developers working with Tencent being affected by China's censorships in any way? And he says the extreme case is, of course, Red Candle's Devotion. So I think Devotion didn't work with Tencent directly. I think that's the big point here, is that in most cases, most developers are fine. When they get the investment from Tencent, they just take the money and they continue to operate in the way that they always have. That's not just the way that Tencent works. It's the way a lot of Chinese investment firms work, where they don't like to be very hands-on. They like to be in the background. They like to just give money and get out of the way. They have a lot of money, and they just want to make a lot of investments, and they spend most of their effort on finding new investments, new ideas that could, play out really well in gaming and have a big effect that way. They don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of controlling companies themselves. Now, that's not to say if a company came out and made a game about how, Taiwan being an independent country, or if they made a joke about Xi Jinping, I can't remember his name now, but looking like Winnie the Pooh or whatever, that stuff I'm sure that would maybe cause some issues, but that would cause issues for any game, whether you have investments with Tencent or not. And the reason is, and I think the thing with Devotion is, there's a lot of people in China who, when they see that, they just are trying to stay good with the party there. And so I think with Devotion, they downvoted that game. They gave it poor reviews on Steam. And so it's just sort of this thing that's kind of happening naturally, whether or not you have any investments from Tencent. So, and, a lot of companies do have investments from Tencent, and I want to come up with examples of companies giving into pressure even when they don't have money directly from China. Problem is, you think Blizzard gave into China about Hong Kong and that issue with Blitzchung, but they have an investment from Activision. It's 6% owned by Tencent or something like that. So not a good example, but I think whether or not they had that investment, I believe that thing would have gone the exact same way. Where, and really this is just the nature of investment. When someone gives you their money and they invest in you and they buy, 5-10% of you, they still don't have much of a say over anything. And really, like, your concern, like, with them has nothing to do with, like, okay, they gave us that money, now we have to do what they say. No, they gave you that money, now you need to go make more money. And that's the actual focus of what should happen here. And that's the agreement that most companies and most sides of this equation agree upon. And the effects of Chinese censorship will be felt in the industry, whether that investment's there or not, because China is such a huge market. And some people will ignore it, and some people will find ways around it, and some people will not care. And I applaud that. But in many situations, especially when you're dealing with giant corporations, they are not going to want to give up any relationships they have with China. And they're much more worried about the person on the end buying the game being upset, or the regulators being upset and not allowing the game into China, than about worrying about who gave them money already. They already got that money. But the short answer there, to kind of wrap that up, is I wouldn't worry about that too much. The Tencent's not coming in and enacting the censorship themselves. Take the money. If like you're in a situation, not saying that you would be, but like if a developer was in a situation where they're like, hey, you know, are we going to decide to take this money or not? Will we feel reprisals if you know, if we mess up or screw up with some way in terms of Chinese censorship? You're going to feel that anyway. Just take that money and figure it out. Like, get paid. From G Vallo, according to Hobby Lobby winter was mid-August. That's when Christmas decorations came out. Yeah, listen, again, I don't care about that much. I do think it's fine. I am definitely considering going and getting a pumpkin spice latte because I'm basic. Okay? But I'm not gonna go, like, if someone's like, oh man, this is a hot summer, I'm not gonna be like, well, I'm sipping a pumpkin spice latte, so actually it's fall. That would be lunacy. That's my only point. That would just be madness. The point is that the words existed because of the Earth's relationship to the sun. So the Earth tilts, and as it moves around the sun, that tilt gets a certain amount of sun into certain areas, and the energies, and at a certain point, the day is the shortest it's going to be all year, and that's the day winter starts. And then eventually we got the Hallmark Channel and peppermint drinks and Christmas lights and Christmas movies, and people are like, well, I want that stuff to start around November time, and so at least by December, and so that's winter. And it's like, okay, well, I don't care, but it's the word means whatever. Can't take it.